They didn't send them there to win. They sent them there to die. A regiment of black soldiers. Outnumbered, outgunned, placed in front of an entire German armored division and told to hold the line, a line military strategists said would collapse in hours. They held it for 18 days. And when it was over, when the impossible had actually happened, the United States Army opened the files and erased every single one of them. For nearly 80 years, most Americans had no idea these men ever existed. No textbook mentioned them. No monument carried their names. This is the story of the 761st Tank Battalion. This is the story America was terrified to tell. To understand what happened on that frozen battlefield, you have to understand the America these men were born into. For 300 years, black Americans had been told, by law, by culture, by the Constitution itself, that they were not fully human. And yet every single time America needed soldiers, they called on black men to die for a country that refused to see them as citizens. Good enough to die, not good enough to be remembered. By World War II, that pattern was nothing new. Black soldiers showed up for the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, every time, pushed to the back, supply lines, labor battalions, anywhere but the front. And when they came home, Jim Crow was waiting. They couldn't eat with white soldiers. Couldn't sleep in the same barracks. Couldn't even donate blood to the same banks. Even blood was segregated. The message was clear. Your sacrifice is useful. Your humanity is not. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with this. If you knew your country would erase you the moment the war was over, would you still fight? Drop your answer in the comments. Because what these men chose to do next, knowing exactly how they be treated, that as the part that changes everything. By 1944, the war in Europe had become a meat grinder. The military was desperate. And desperation makes the unthinkable suddenly very thinkable. Someone in high command made a decision. An all-black combat tank battalion. The 761st Tank Battalion. The newspapers called them the Black Panthers. Trained in secret. Shipped to Europe in October 1944. Assigned to support the 101st Airborne. Men who looked at these black tankers with barely concealed contempt. The war didn't care about their feelings. On December 16, 1944, Hitler made his last desperate gamble. A massive offensive through Belgium, punched through American lines, raced to the coast, split the Allies in half. History would call it the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans drove hard toward Bastogne, a critical supply hub. If it fell, the entire American position in Europe could unravel. The 101st Airborne was ordered to hold Bastogne at all costs. And they were given reinforcements. The 761st Tank Battalion. What nobody said out loud, but everyone understood, was the real assignment. The 761st was sent there to absorb the blow, to buy time with their bodies. The expected outcome wasn't victory. It was a body count. What happened next has been called, by military historians, mathematically impossible. For 18 days, in temperatures below zero, fuel running low, ammunition growing scarce, the 761st did not break. They didn't just hold. They counterattacked. They hit German supply lines behind enemy territory. They went tank to tank with the Nazi war machine in the snow. When every calculation said they should have been destroyed on day 1, they were still fighting on day 18. Bastogne held. The German offensive collapsed. Historians would later conclude, without the 761st, Bastogne might have fallen, and without Bastogne, the entire Western Front could have looked very different. Here in S where the story takes a turn that will make you sick. Too many people had witnessed what happened. You couldn't just make it vanish. Or could you? The story that spread through America was carefully shaped. The 101st Airborne had held Bastogne. General McAuliffe had delivered his legendary one-word reply to the German surrender demand. Nuts. The narrative was clean, heroic, and very, very white. The 761st? Redacted. Files disappeared. Records were lost. Historians who asked questions were stonewalled. It worked for decades, and the soldiers themselves came home to nothing. No gratitude. No recognition. No honor. They came home to segregated lunch, counters, and red-line neighborhoods, a country that had decided their sacrifice simply did not count. The system understood something it could never say out loud. If black soldiers had been essential to American victory, then their humanity was essential too. And if their humanity mattered, the entire justification for segregation started to crack. So they buried it. If this story is hitting you the way it hit me, hit that like button right now. The only way these stories survive is if we refuse to let them disappear again. In the early 2000s, historians started digging. Veterans, advocates started asking questions. They found documents the military assumed were destroyed. They tracked down aging veterans and finally listened. In 2017, 73 years after the battle, the U.S. Army officially recognized the 761st Tank Battalion with a streamer for combat excellence. For many of the men who fought in that snow, it came too late. But here in Oppos, what matters most. The 761st was not the exception. The Tuskegee Airmen had the best combat record of any fighter group in the European theater, nearly forgotten. The 92nd Infantry Division suffered over 3,000 casualties in Italy, stripped from official histories. The 366th Combat Team liberated towns across Italy, erased too, again and again, called on to do the impossible, forbidden from claiming credit. The system didn't end Oppos, just discriminate. It lied. What does it mean to erase the heroism of people already fighting to be seen? It means teaching children a version of history that ISN and Oppos, just incomplete. It is deliberately false. It means saying, generation after generation, your bravery doesn't end Oppos, register. Your sacrifice doesn't end Oppos, count. But buried truths don't end Oppos, stay buried forever. Every document recovered. Every veteran who finally got to speak. Every video that refuses to let the official lie stand. Those are acts of resurrection. The 761st came back. And now when you read about the Battle of the Bulge, you know. There were black tanks on that frozen landscape. You know what those men were up against. You know what they chose to do. Anyway, they didn't end Oppos. Fight because they believed the country would come through for them. They fought because of something no system could ever take. The knowledge of who they were. That is not blind loyalty. That is the deepest kind of courage that exists. Share this. Put it on somebody in Oppos' timeline who needs to see it. Because the best way to fight erasure is simple. Refuse to let it happen again. And if you want more stories like this, the ones they left out of your textbooks, the ones too powerful to be allowed in the mainstream, subscribe to Ancestors and Oppos, Glory. We in Oppos, we're not done digging. The price of freedom was never measured in battles won. It was always measured in the stories we refused to let die.